Hello and welcome to the building blog of the Svenson Jungmeister. So I've made a start on the wings and I thought it was prudent to begin with the centre section. And as you can see here, it's glued together and pinned down. The main strength of the wing, in fact all of the strength of the wing really, comes from these spruce spars. And they splice in to the panels, the wing panel spars, and there are 1, 2, 3, and these spars here on the main wing are a bigger cross section. So I think there'll be an awful lot of strength in the structure itself. I've drilled through some holes, access holes, to allow the aileron cables to pass through, because I intend to operate 2 separate servos to drive the ailerons rather than one single servo with a bell crank. I just think there's far more opportunity for slop to be introduced into the system if one uses this approach. So overall it's an odd approach in the sense that you have to feed the spars through the ribs, rather than setting them down or setting the ribs on a lower spar that's pinned in place. So it's quite interesting doing that. What seems to be a sloppy tolerance turns out to be a much tighter tolerance when you're lining up all the spars. The pin down at the rear and just weighted down, well in fact they don't even need any weight at the front. They're nice and flat, there's no movement in them. I intend on putting the undercarriage block in retrospect rather than trying to pack it up. I'm going to epoxy that into place and I might actually add some additional strengthening. One peculiar feature that I haven't worked out the purpose for, I'm sure there must be one, is that where you have 2 ribs joining the centre section to the main panel, there are these peculiar cutouts that are added in to the front of each rib. Now I don't know the purpose of those. I haven't worked out why they might be necessary. I'm sure there is one. Perhaps when I start building the main panels it'll become more evident why they're necessary. But as you can see here, 2 spars here meet up with the spars on the wing panel which pass through this rib and the other rib on the panel itself and are spliced in this position. So that's all to come. So far so good. I've enjoyed putting this together. As I say, it's a little bit peculiar threading the spars through the ribs, but I've managed to do that. There are gussets to add and a number of strengthening pieces to add, and the front shaped leading edge to put in. But up to now, so far so good. I'm rather pleased with that. Bye for now. This is the process of sliding the ribs onto the spars, and what seems to be a slack fit at first obviously tightens up when you put the ribs across at the correct angle. And it's just a case of patience, shuffling the ribs around and getting them into position, ready for marrying up to the centre section, obviously with the dihedrals. But the first stage is to spend a bit of time lining everything up, and when I'm happy with that, I'll put the rear trailing edge in and the formed leading edge, and then it can be tack glued with super glue, CA glue, and then a final, any gaps being filled with wood glue and balsa. So after a little bit of fiddling about, these are the ribs slid onto the spars. It's all just a dry run, there's no adhesive glue being added yet, and the dihedral packing has been put in place just to ensure that there isn't an undue strain when the panel joins the centre section. But all has gone together really nicely up to now. As I said, there's no strain on this at all. It's sitting nice and flat. And once this is actually being glued together and dried out, it will be attached with the set dihedral braces. The front leading edge, Cliff asked if it was made out of 3 parts, and it's actually a bit of a luxury item, I think. It's a formed leading edge. It's been cut out and shaped, which will save an awful lot of time. Seems odd considering that in other parts of the build you've simply been presented with big blocks of balsa, but I'm not going to complain. That'll move things on a lot quicker. Rather pleased with that. Time to get the panel flat on the board, take the dihedral braces out and build it flat and true, tacking it with CA and then pinning it down and gluing up with wood glue. So bye for now, until the next stage. Right, that's tacked and pinned. Everything's lined up in place. I've tacked it with CA and I've tacked it with actual pins to hold it in position. I'm now going to apply some wood glue to all the joints, make a cup of coffee and leave it for a good couple of hours before I actually lift it off the board and put it to one side. It won't be glued here or on this scarf joint here or this scarf joint here because I want to take it off, do the other panel, and then I'll set the dihedral brace one panel at a time, gluing everything in place. I still haven't worked out what these inset pieces, what the purpose of doing them would be. All I can assume is it's to make it easier to join this formed front piece to the centre panel. But it won't make any difference. It's an easy job to do. Till the next part. Yes, I know it looks very Heath Robinson, but this is the first wing panel of the lower wing, jigged up and set at the dihedral angle. There you go, weighed down by a piece of wood and obviously a very accurate weight here, a Stanley knife. The scarf joints have been clamped and the centre panel is being held down by a sandbag. So there you go, all on the way. Very pleased with that. Need to let this set. I think I'll leave it overnight, then repeat on the other side, and then bar a little bit of fiddling about and tidying up. That's the first lower wing completed. So this is the bulk of the lower wing now completed. The dihedral has been set and the 2 end panels have been added to the middle section. The only thing that remains to be done is this centre section is sheeted above and below. End tips need to be added, and then the whole thing needs to be given a good sand down. There is an awful lot of strength in the way that these spars have been joined and spliced together, and I'm sure it's going to make for an extremely strong wing. So, being a biplane, one more to go.